Get to, I guess, the main attraction. There's been a lot said about Tucker Carlson recently. Of course, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson talked shit about Nick Fuentes, what was it, a couple days ago? And in this shit-talking session, Tucker claimed that he didn't know that his dad was in the CIA until after his dad was dead. After his dad was dead, which is weird because he had said that he knew on video. But people are starting to wake up, finally. People are starting to come around to the fact that Tucker Carlson lies. I would have thought that when he said that demons scratched him up in his bed full of dogs, that would have, maybe set off some alarm bells. Even if you were media illiterate, you would think, oh, this guy, I don't know, something's up with this guy. Or, all the other things that he's done over the years on video. And, but again, people don't have very long memory. People they want to have mainstream representation for some reason. I don't know 100% the psychology behind that. We're going to get into some of the psychology behind why I think they like Tucker, but there's something more. It's not just Tucker. It's that you saw this exact same thing with Trump. You see this all the time with the right wing really, really, really wanting someone in the mainstream to represent them. And they don't understand that that's not possible. It's not possible because your enemy is the system. And so anyone that's mainstream within the system is not going to be on your side. In fact, they're going to be against you because you seek at the very least to dramatically reform the system. That's if you're maybe a little more conservative than I am. At the very least, you want to radically reform the system in ways that would punish the people like Tucker Carlson who have benefited from the system their whole lives. And there's no end in sight in terms of their generational wealth so long as the system is preserved. And look, Tucker Carlson, we're not going to rehash everything, but we are going to rehash some of it, has said as much in his book, Ship of Fools. I've talked about this before. He said that the whole reason why he wrote the book was to ring the alarm bell for the elites, let them know that, hey, the natives are getting restless. If we don't start throwing them some table scraps, the pitchforks are coming out. He said exactly that in interviews talking about his book, and he says that in his book. And we're not going to go, we've gone over that before. One thing I wanted to point out is I remember clearly back in 2019 and 2020, when I was raising these alarms when it came to Tucker Carlson, and a lot of people who are thankfully coming around now were giving me shit for it and saying, some people are still saying the exact same thing. It's literally the same thing. I feel like I'm in this infinite loop of people who don't quite get it yet. They hear what I say. They start saying, oh, you're just a black pill, you're a black pill, you just don't want to win. And then they lose enough times to where they get blackpilled, but then inevitably a new crop of retards come in and they say the same thing over and it just keeps happening over and over and over again. But in this cycle back in 2019, 2020, I did all video talking about how subversive Tucker was and how you could pick up the subtlety of his language. And here's the thing. I understand that not everyone does what I do or anything like this. So you don't understand necessarily, or maybe you're not even a writer or anything like that. You don't understand the intention that is involved with language and how if you're a public speaker, as I am, and certainly not with the audience that Tucker Carlson has, but still that's what I do, and that's what he does. And so it's easier, I think, for people like me and other public speakers to see what he does and pick up on these subtleties and understand that when you're doing this kind of a job, you have to be very intentional. You have to be very, very precise with your language because you're trying to convey a certain message. And so anyone that's even remotely good at this job, and look, Tucker's good at what he does, he's going to be super precise with his language and very intentional with his language. And so when he says things, especially if there's a pattern that emerges, then it's very likely that it's intentional, that it is meant to, it's got a motive behind it, and it's very goal-oriented language, And so anyway, I put out a video. I just want to play a clip from it, or it's a couple snips that I threw together from 2020. When I started noticing certain things, certain ways in which Tucker was phrasing things, and just to show you that, like, I've been talking about this a long time, and look, that's not the intention. I actually don't care. Like, I don't want credit. Like, first of all, I wasn't the only one saying this sort of stuff back in 2020. But second of all, it's not about like I said it first, or I said it before so and so, or whatever. I don't care about that shit. It's about people understanding the information. And in fact, if anything, if other people say the same thing and more people listen to them, that's, for me, the way I look at that, that's more of a reflection on me. That's more like, oh, I must not have done that great of a job. If I try to explain this and only, X amount of people absorb it, but someone else says it and like way more people absorb it. First of all, I'm happy because I want that information to get out there, but obviously I got to do a better job. So it's not about that, but it is to show you that there is a long history of Tucker being a gatekeeper and Tucker being playing a specific role for his class, for the elite class. And so here is the clip from a video I put out in 2020. I didn't realize the level of fanaticism that there was around Tucker Carlson. I'm going to play a clip of Tucker Carlson saying that the book White Fragility is just as bad and evil as the Protocols of the Elder Zion. He's saying that this book is really bad and it's full of misinformation and blood libel, just like the Protocols of the Elder Zion.
The most popular book on the left right now is a demented piece of pseudoscience entitled White Fragility. It was written by a wild-eyed racemonger known as Robin DiAngelo. 10 years from now, we'll look back in horror at the thought that so many decent people would read something this vicious and crazy as White Fragility and read it openly in public places with no shame. That's a bad sign. How would you feel if your seatmate on a United flight cracked open the Protocols of the Elders of Zion? You'd be shocked. And yet, thanks to encouragement from Democratic leaders, it is happening everywhere. White Fragility is now required reading in schools and in boardrooms. Corporations are internalizing its message, its sick message.
Now, there are people that are thinking with their dick so hard right now. They watched that clip and through their delusion thought, oh my God, Tucker Carlson is using 4D chess. Where have we heard that before? 4D chess. He's telling people about the Protocols of the Elder Zion. Now they're gonna Google it and read it, and they're all gonna be red-pilled on the Jews. So when people watch that clip and they come up with this conspiracy theory that, well, he has to talk like that, he has to say that, this is 4D chess.